All right, so welcome everyone to this Q&A. Again, want to welcome everyone to this Q&A. Someone asked me, I think last week, I didn't get to deal with it, but we'll deal with it now. And that is, speaking Lashon Hara, God forbid, speaking badly against someone else. There are 7 conditions. There are 7 conditions that a person is obligated to go through before they're allowed to tell over the information. Right? We're going to mention them. Over here. The first one is, and this is pretty crucial. I mean, they're all pretty crucial, but in general, the speaker should have witnessed this himself. In other words, they have to have seen the event that took place. They're not allowed to say, "Oh, I heard about it. It was a rumor," right? Even if that would be the case, it would have to be verified, right? 100%. 100%. It would have to be. It would have to be verified. It would have to be verified over here. That's the first thing. Second thing is the person should think, reflect. Don't make any conclusions that something is theft, something is damaged, or any other offense, and that it goes against halacha. Right? So, first of all, or let's say better, secondly, you have, before you jump to conclusions, you say, "Oh, it's forbidden, it's that." Whatever the person did, don't act so quickly. That's the second thing. Again, first thing, you have to see it yourself or verify. Second thing is, don't act so fast. Third thing is, speakers should first approach the transgressor and rebuke him in a gentle language. In other words, they should rebuke them where they're going to be inclined to listen. Why? Maybe the person's going to have an impact over here. He's able to give mussar in a way that the person's going to be able to listen. Now, what if the transgressor doesn't listen? Then the speaker should alert the public of this guilt. And again, also where the speaker knows in advance, transgressor is not going to listen. Right? That we're going to see. All right, but again, you have to give rebuke. You have to give rebuke. That's the third thing. Fourth thing is the description of the sin should not be exaggerated for effect or for any other reason. Right? Which means you got to tell it the way it is. You cannot exaggerate. Right? 100%. You can't exaggerate. That's the fourth thing. Fifth thing is the speaker must have what we call pure intention. Pure intention over here means the toelis. Toelis means for a purpose. That a person shouldn't enjoy his friend's the person transgressed. He shouldn't enjoy his disgrace. Or act out of hatred, or or bearing a grudge, let's say, which is still a prohibition anyway. All right, so you have to have pure intentions over here. That's the fifth thing. Sixth thing is that the speaking of the purpose, let's say better, the purpose of speaking Lashon Hara, if it's going to cause the sinner to repent, warning the community to stay away from such activity can only be achieved in another way, right? Let's say I can achieve this in a different way than actually speaking Lashon Hara, then it's forbidden. Then it's forbidden to speak Lashon Hara. In other words, if there's any other way of doing this without speaking Lashon Hara, it should be done. Right? That's the sixth condition. Seventh condition, by speaking Lashon Hara, transgressor, the one who transgressed, should not be caused more damage than would be appropriate is determined by court of Jewish law. Right? In other words, if a based in court of Jewish law would review the case, you can't, the person can't get fined, let's say, or pay more than what would be determined by the base. Now, what would be an example? An example is if a thief would be obligated to pay the victim, let's say $100. But Lashon Hara caused them damages of $500. That's forbidden. In other words, you can't cause more damage than what he's liable for. So those are the 7 conditions. Right? Again, you got to see the incident yourself. You got to reflect thoroughly. Don't make a conclusion straight away. You got to approach the transgressor privately. Right? Rebuke him with gentle language before he can start saying anything. The description of the sin cannot be exaggerated. You have to have pure intention, i.e. litoeles. It's got to be for a purpose. Also, if it can be achieved in a different way, then you're not allowed to say it. And the last thing is that you should not cause more damage than you'd already be guilty. Right? Those are 7 conditions. Right? Those are 7 conditions that have to be met before the person, before the person speaks against someone else. Now, one important thing, there are a number of important things here. One is, rebuking the person first. So people will say today, we don't know how to do rebuke. Right? We don't say the right things. Maybe we're too strong at it, whatever. We don't know how to, give rebuke, but that's not necessarily an excuse over here. Right? But if the witness, let's say, the witness knows that the person's not going to listen, then you don't need to rebuke him. But you have to know that. You can't just guess. You can't guess over here. It's something you have to know. Something you have to know. Now, also, speaker has to be careful to speak in front of 3 people. Why? Because if you only speak in front of 1 person or 2 people, what does it appear like? It appears he doesn't want what he says to get back to the subject. In other words, he says in front of 2 people, he wants to be careful that it should go back to the original person. Right? Maybe he wants to flatter the person or deceive him, insult him in secret. Right? Also appears speakers enjoying telling the Lashon Hara, because they're not doing it in front of a lot of people. Right? So if he says it in front of a lot of people, then no word is going to get back to him. Right? And in such a case also wouldn't be constructive, no constructive purpose, over here. Therefore, you got to speak in front of 3 individuals. That's considered, a crowd, so to speak. Right? Meaning publicly. Now, what happens if, let's say you said it in front of a lot of people? The listeners are forbidden to accept it 100%. Right? They're not allowed to accept it 100%. But at the same time, they can guard themselves. They can guard themselves against the person or whatever it is. Right? But they shouldn't conclude the information necessarily is something negative against the subject. Against the person. They have to investigate. They have to investigate it further. Right? So that's pretty crucial. By rebuke. Now, another important thing over here is when you're telling over the information, you 100% cannot exaggerate. You got to tell the story as it was. No exaggeration beyond the facts. Right? That's also pretty important over here. As well as it's got to be constructive. It has to have a purpose. If it doesn't have a purpose, then you can't say it. Right? It has to be a benefit for something. Just saying it for no reason, that's nothing. Right? There's no benefit. There's no benefit involved. Right? Over here. right? So, a lot of people will say, when they say something that, say this is a Lashon Hara, this is a benefit. Well, it's got to be a clear-cut benefit. People throw around the term like a rag doll. They say, oh yeah, this is a benefit, whatever. The reality is, it's a Lashon Hara. Right? So, these are 7 conditions, right? Like I said, someone wanted to, know what these are. These are the 7 conditions that have to be met before you speak Lashon Hara. So yeah, I wanted to get that out. Yeah, there are a bunch of questions here. Someone asked, is marijuana kosher? Depends what you use it for. Right? If it's medical marijuana and there are certain conditions that a person be allowed to use medical marijuana, right? If they're in pain, chronic pain, right? Something like that. Again, you have to obviously have to ask your local Orthodox rabbi about that. But if a person's in chronic pain in general, then if other conditions are met, then they should be allowed to take it. Right? The question is, could a person take it, is it kosher to take? So yeah, there's nothing not kosher unless, there's other stuff in it. Let's say there's, it's flavored or whatever. No marijuana comes flavored. If it would, you need rabbinic supervision. But to take it in general, that'd be forbidden. That is actually, I had a discussion with someone the other day, very interesting discussion. And that was, what about taking, I don't know, let's say something homeopathic, something natural, no side effects. And a person would take it, in order to, help them spiritually. Not talking ecstasy, we're not talking, hallucinogenic drugs. Those would be problematic for a number of reasons. But what about something that doesn't have any side effects? Has 0 side effects. Right? Many will say drinking is worse than marijuana. As drugs go, marijuana is kind of tame compared to, to other drugs, other more serious or harder, harder drugs. Now, that might be true. And even if, people die in the roads, God forbid, because of DUI, right? Driving under the influence. So that's, alcohol is more severe, right? Alcohol will be more severe in many ways. That is true, right? That is true. Now, that being the case, there are other issues. There are other negative effects. Well, someone will say it's not as bad as other things. Okay. So now you get into the question, what about, din the malchus, or about the law of the land? So what if where you live, it's legal? It's legal to take it. You don't need, not for medicine or whatever. It's legal to take it. To buy it. You have to be over a certain age. Are you allowed to do it? No. Why aren't you allowed to do it? Because there's negative effects. Many negative effects. You'll tell me it's not as bad as other drugs. So what? It has negative effects. Definitely has negative effects. So it's got negative effects. So the Torah says, Shomer's nafshu seichem. You have an obligation to guard your body. This is going to make you apathetic. You smoke it enough, that's what's going to happen. Right? It's give you no drive. You won't want to accomplish anything. So you say it's a minor effect. There are people that smoke and have, full-time jobs and this and that. But it has an effect. Destroys brain cells. Just like, you say drink enough alcohol can do that and also destroy your liver. Right, at the same time. So kosher, technically, yeah, it is. Taking it's a different issue. Right? So in other words, if you're telling me taking it for medicinal purposes, person chronic pain, meet a number of conditions, very good. If not, if not, then recreational usage should be forbidden. I did spoke about it quite a bit in we did a show on Tanakh on controversial issues about alcohol, about marijuana, etc. Someone asked if you meet all 7 conditions, right? Back to Lashon Hara. If you met all 7 conditions, it's not Lashon Hara, right? There's the benefit. You went through, what do you call it? You rebuked the person beforehand. You didn't exaggerate. You met all the conditions. By meeting all the conditions, takes out a Lashon Hara. Right? It would make it not Lashon Hara. Now, the question is, even if it meets all the conditions, is it something a person should do? That's a different question. Right? In other words, you can meet all the conditions, so what? By meeting all the conditions doesn't mean it's not Lashon Hara. Doesn't mean that. Right? It's the question is it, even though we're going to say it's not a good thing to do, that it wouldn't be forbidden per se, right? Same way it wouldn't be forbidden. The question is, should I do it? Right? The more philosophical issue. So you tell me if it's permitted, I meet the conditions, not a problem. Right? Seemingly you're right. Right? Seemingly it shouldn't be a problem. Right? The question is, should you do it? As a philosophical issue. Right? Now the Chofetz Chaim does not say, okay, you meet these conditions, go say what you want. He's saying, these conditions have details. There are a myriad of details here. I just highlighted them. But they are a myriad of details. The person's got to be careful. Who's to, we can be OCD over here and say, well, who's to say we met the condition? We met all the conditions. Maybe we didn't. Maybe we failed in some way, at some level. So then it would be Lashon Hara, because you didn't fulfill it, right? The Chofetz Chaim says, who says we're going to be able to fulfill it the way we need to? Even if you do it, technically you're right. It's not Lashon Hara. True. Yeah, but the Chofetz Chaim says, who says we did it the right way, 100%? Can we say we did it 100%? Right? How many people are going to be 100% confident? Maybe some. Maybe some will say, I fulfilled all the obligations, at a very high level, let's say. Okay? Right? But for everybody else, different issue. Right? Do I have to be OCD in that sense? You got to be careful. Chofetz Chaim's warning you. You got to be careful, because who's to say you got it all right? And if you didn't get it all right and you missed something here or there, Lashon Hara. Because I can never say it. If you meet the conditions, you can. Should be 100% permissible. Question is, did you meet all the conditions? Right? That's the question. Should it be forbidden if the person repented? Yeah. If the person already repented, then you shouldn't say it. Right? No reason to say it. What's the benefit? You rebuke, let's say, one of the conditions, you rebuke the person. And the person says, yeah, I feel bad, I have remorse, I regret, I'm not going to do it, blah, blah, blah. Then you don't have to say it. Shouldn't say it. Right? If all the conditions are met, the person doesn't repent, then yeah. Then it's not going to be allowed. Yeah, somebody asks, you're into some basic level books about the Shabbos of 39 Malachos. Yeah, there's a book called The 39 Malachos by Rabbi Ribiat. Going to put this up here. It's about 3 volumes, I think 3 or 4 volumes. Probably the most, whatever. It's not cheap. Probably come out to about $100, give or take, $80, $90, something like that. But it's a very good reference book. Very, very good reference book. There's a kid's book. It's also good. Also, under the same name, 39 Malachas, but it's more like a, I'm not going to say a comic book, but it's a hardcover book that also, it's geared towards kids, just going through all the categories. That's what I would say on that. 1 second here. Is it true that the Rambam said Islam is Hashem's plan to prepare the Jewish Messiah to come? Don't know if that's true or not. I do know there are those that say that Christianity, maybe false, but at least it brought people to believe in God. Even if it's false, right? Even if it's false. So, that being the case, so if you're bringing the world to religion, okay, right? There is a benefit. If you'd ask me, I'd say, well, what's the benefit? Why would there be a benefit? Reason being that, it's false. We all believe it's a false religion. I mean, whoever believes it's a false religion, right? We should believe it's a false religion, idolatry, paganism, right? Anything goes against Moshe Rabbeinu and the Torah is forbidden, right? Is totally forbidden. That's the case. That definitely be the case. So, any false religion would be like that, right? But others would say, but they bring this idea of belief in God. Okay, but it's false, right? Essentially, it's false, right? But some will say the fact that they bring this to the world, and there are people that believe in God, that's not a bad thing. Now, I just got to redirect it, rechannel it. You got to rechannel it, in a proper way, right? So you do it in the proper way, so it's not bad, in that sense. But, I would say the fact that it exists, a lot of it is just a name only. Because, I don't know the stats, you can take this with a grain of salt, but, how many really true Bible thumpers are there in the world? You'll say there are tens of thousands, whatever, but most Christians today, what they really believe, go to church every week, hold by what they're supposed to do. I don't know. Probably not the majority. I don't think it's majority. They just give it faith, lip service. They'll say, yeah, the Christian this, that, but do they do what they're supposed to do? Probably not. Right? But there's this idea of bringing God to the world. I was interviewed. I was going to rabbinical school in New York by a local paper, and one of my comments that actually they quoted was, people say that a lot of people believe in God or this is a religious country, and I said it's a bunch of garbage. That was my comment. I don't believe it. I know people I grew up with, 100%. 100%. They weren't religious by any stretch. They did communion, whatever, but religious? Went to church every week? Never. Right? So it says, well, it depends where you went to school. Yeah, it depends. I'm saying the vast majority depends where. Some places, people go every week, and this, go more than once a week, whatever it is. Vast majority, I don't think so. I think a lot of people are just confused. They believe it in name, but not actually what it says. Because if they actually would think about what it says, they would delve more deeply into it. They would see it doesn't make sense. Someone asked, can I learn basic halachas of Shabbos and Kashrus, even if you're not sure you're going to convert? That's a good question. Yeah, you can learn basic things. I wouldn't say to learn it too much in depth. Right? If you're sure you're going to convert, yeah, so then you should learn it more in depth. If you have a doubt, yeah, you can learn it a little bit. I wouldn't learn it very much in depth at all, right? For that reason. Right? Because you're not going to convert. So it doesn't apply to you. Someone asks, I'd say they hold by one rabbi more than another. Is it a problem with Lashon Hara? It's not a problem with Lashon Hara per se. They can say they hold by, they can say they hold by this rabbi, or a Jew can say that. I hold by this one. If the other person, let's say, I don't hold by this person because he's a heretic, that you're allowed to say, right? If the person is a heretic, right? Comparing rabbis, I don't think is a good thing, in general. Some are greater than others, no question, just based on knowledge, right? Based on knowledge in their, character traits, right? Not just about knowledge, but it's how they act, right? How they act as well, right? So, by saying holding by one rabbi over another, technically it's probably nothing wrong with it, right? But, the question is who you're comparing over here. You're comparing the Torah giant to someone like me. Like, there's no comparison, right? You'd listen to a Torah giant 10 times more before you'd ever listen to me. True? Right? That's not a bad thing. That's a fact, right? So, the question is, what's meant by the statement? There's a statement where a person says, I don't hold by this rabbi in a negative way. That's what it sounds like, right? If it's said, let's say, in a negative way, then the question is, did what they say is Lashon Hara or not? We thought, one question we'll throw out there. It says by Noach, it says that Noach was righteous in his generation. What do you mean his generation? Two opinions. One opinion is, in his generation, he was great. If it had been in Abraham's generation, it would have been even greater, positive. On the other hand, if it would have been in Abraham's generation, some say it would have been compared to anything, right? He was only good according to his generation, right? So that means, so if you look at the negative, it means, yeah, he got saved. He's able to save his wife and his kids. That's it. If it had been another generation, again, what are you comparing him to? I heard someone say, Rabbi, don't give me so much mussar. 18, 19-year-old kid says I'm holding, better than 95% of world Jewry, right? So I said, let's say you're right. Maybe, I don't think so, but let's say, right? Let's say you're right. So what? Who are you comparing to? Who are you comparing to? I just heard a great rabbi say the other day, exactly my line. I was shocked. I don't think they heard it from me, right? But they say, people don't know very much about Judaism, and about Torah, right? They'll say the biggest question they ever ask in their lives is they put ketchup or mustard, ketchup or mustard on the hot dog. I was like, hey, that's my line. I was like, that's my line. I can't believe I heard it from someone much greater than me. So I was very happy hearing this. But again, so this 19-year-old kid, who's he comparing to? He's comparing to the rest of the generation that, will barely ask the question, I would ketchup or mustard on my hot dog. Who are they holding like? Who are they comparing to? People know nothing. They can't even read Hebrew, for goodness sakes. So yeah, you compare to them, very good. So you're much greater than them in many ways. Okay. So what about everybody else? That's not saying very much. So if you say, I hold according to this rabbi, not this rabbi, question is, what's the intent of what's being said? Are you knocking down this other rabbi to say, well, he's not worth very much? Or saying, he's really good, but I hold to this one better. Now, you didn't necessarily say something negative. Depends how it's looked at. Are you putting down this other rabbi, just say, he's not as good? He's not as great over here? Or are you just gonna say, I hold the one and not the other, and it's just a par statement. The question is how a person takes it. Right? If you say I hold it like this one, not that one, this other one's a heretic, and he says this and that, very good. So that's not a problem. We can speak about, people say about Lashon Hara, you can't say anything about rabbis. That's really bad. It is bad. It's worse than speaking about anybody else. True. But if the person's a heretic, I have a right to say whatever I want. Even if there's no benefit. I would say there's no benefit. What's the point of saying it? Okay. Right? But technically, it's no problem. I can make fun of them. I can say whatever I want. Right? Doesn't matter. I can even work hard, take away their livelihood, technically speaking. Why? They don't deserve it. Because they're a heretic. Right? So it depends what you're comparing to. Depends what you're comparing to over here. That's what I would say. Someone asked, but should we have one primary rabbi that an individual listens to? Yes. Somebody you go to for advice. Right? Very true. And, a lot of people, I would say, have somebody like that, but maybe they're not expert in certain things, so they'll ask another rabbi. Some people are expert at, laws of kashrus. Some people are experts, in the laws of the holidays and blessings and Shabbos and, other things. Right? So maybe the rabbi you get your advice from doesn't, not well versed in these things. Right? So you have to ask other rabbis questions. But it's true. Shouldn't somebody have one main rabbi they go to? Yes. Because you go to too many people, you know what they say, you have too many hands in the pot, you get burned. You don't want to go to too many people, especially when it comes to Jewish philosophy. Because even though 99% of everything Torah we all agree, nonetheless, certain things, we may see differently. We may see differently, let's say, about the state of Israel. Some are more Zionistic, less Zionistic, whatever it is. So there are issues. There are some issues we may disagree. Okay. But the vast majority, right, I would say 99%, we agree. So the question is, a person should have one person, they go to, for their advice. Right? You shouldn't go to more than one person because it's contradictory things. One person may say one thing, another person may say something else. Right? So, that you got to be careful. So how could that be? Because there's different ways of looking at things. For instance, there might be people, let's say like this, there might be rabbis out there, very good at bringing unaffiliated Jews back to Judaism. Okay. But it doesn't mean I would ask them a kashrus shayla. I would ask them a kashrus question. Or a question about nida, family purity law. Right? Unless I would know they're well versed in it. Or most people who do Jewish outreach are not well versed. They're much younger. So those type of questions I wouldn't ask them. Right? If the person's well versed, they know what they're doing, they have proper rabbinic guidance, different issue. Different issue. It depends. It depends based on what their knowledge is. But yeah, someone here points out, very good. Shouldn't you have a primary rabbi you listen to? Yeah. That you get advice from. If you get advice from too many people, it's a problem. Right? Because, there's a wide spectrum, a philosophical outlook, a very wide spectrum. So that you got to be careful. That 100%, you got to be careful. You got to be careful with. And I see this a lot because people say, yeah, I heard this rabbi say this and this rabbi say that. And this rabbi speaks very strong. Okay. So I told them, well, I listened to them. Oh, no, I love them. So I said, why are you coming to me complaining? Right? There are certain people I would tell people not to listen to if they're too strong for them. And, I'll just mention one other thing, just on this topic. There are different ways to do things. I mentioned last week, there are different ways. There are different schools of thought about when someone should go out and do Jewish outreach. Some say if you know a little bit, you go out, right? You should go out. You still should be learning, but you should go out. Others say no. Others say you shouldn't go out, you shouldn't teach, shouldn't do any of these things until you've learned quite a bit. Until you have, years underneath your belt. Because that's when you need to learn. Like I mentioned, somebody means well, made a video, messed up every Hebrew word, and then quoted something that was true. They quoted the source right, But if they would have lived in a Jewish community, they would have known that that can't be what it says, what it means. And if you look at what the commentaries over there say, it's a very specific case. The person was like a fool. I called them out. Why? Because you can't make a blanket statement and then not know that that's not what we do. You want to say, oh, this is halacha, blah, 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 but we don't do it for this reason, that reason, one thing. But you want to say, this is the normative law, this is what we do, and that's not the case, then you shouldn't be out there making videos. You're wasting time over here. I'm definitely not of the belief you learn a little bit, you go out and teach the world. That's been ingrained in my head. From the Torah giant to the generation. There are other people who disagree, okay? They're not on his level. I don't care who they are. They're not on his level. But they'll disagree and they'll say, hey, even if you know something, go teach it. Not everyone holds that. I want to make clear, not everyone holds that. They might be successful, charismatic. Okay. They may very well be. Okay. But who says that's the right path? Uri Zohar, Torah giants, when he became religious, the greatest Baal Tshuva in the history of the Jewish people. Right? He came back to Judaism. His famous actor here in Israel. They hid him away for 15 years. He would have stayed longer. Had Lev Achim not, forced him, to come out and teach and give classes and this and that. They didn't tell him to go teach someone, even the little that you know. They didn't tell him that. Totally didn't tell him that. They hid him away. They told him you got to sit and learn. Forget about everything else. You sit and learn. That's what he did. Right? And he never would have gone out. That's what he wanted to do, but he had no choice. Right? He eventually had to go out. But some other people will say not that way. They'll say if you know a little bit, you can teach someone else. You can bring them closer. Okay? And what if you don't know something? So you say, I have to look it up. I'll go ask someone. Okay. But at the same time, the main focus has to be on learning. You go out much stronger, as my Rebbe told me. You'll go out much stronger when you have much more knowledge under your belt. And he was right. 100%, he was right. But again, as I mentioned last week, not every, there are those that will say not that way. So someone says, but other people swear by it this other way. Okay, so let them swear by it. I'm not moved by it. I'm not impressed by it. To me, it's annoying. You want to know what's annoying? Because they should be sitting and learning. And if they are sitting and learning, or if they sat and learned for a long time, and now they learn less because they're all busy giving classes, okay, I have no claim on that. If it stunted their spiritual growth, and they could have learned a heck of a lot more, there's that, different issue. God will judge that. That's exactly why I left the non-Orthodox community in the first place. Because I didn't think I'd become anything by just learning a little bit here, a little bit there. Right? And that's why, 5 days a week, now it's 3 days a week. I got the opportunity to sit and learn in the morning. That's what I'm going to do. As we prepare, do other things. Go through other things. So, my issue is people go out way too early. That's my issue. And they're not ready. I mean, they may be able to give classes, they may be very charismatic, okay. But they don't have a wide base of knowledge. They know how to answer people's questions, different things, very good. But they're missing that wide base knowledge. So you're going to say, do I need a wide base knowledge to be able to do it? You'll be much more successful. Much more successful. Where's the, my Rebbe once said, you become a Torah giant in America or anywhere else for that matter. He's talking about America. He says, how do you become a Torah giant in America? You become a Torah giant not by knowledge. It had nothing to do with knowledge. You know what it has to do with? Your mouth. How you speak. Because a lot of people don't know a whole lot, but they're very popular. Extremely popular. But their mouth just goes. And they're good. They're good at what they do. They're good at their craft. Doesn't mean they have world-class knowledge. And a bunch of people I've seen, yeah, it's clear. Totally clear. They don't have that knowledge, but they're very smooth. They're very, very smooth. We live in an upside-down world. I don't like these fakers. Bothers me. It bothers me, not because they have more followers than me and they get more honor and all that. It has nothing to do with anything. I could care less one way or the other. What bothers me is the fact that it's false. That's what bothers me. That a lot of them don't know how to learn. And they just know how to speak. Okay? So God gave them the ability to speak. Very good. But like I said, my Rebbe, who is the Torah giant of the generation, you don't have to like everything he says, doesn't matter, right? But he says that's what it is. It's all fake. It's all fake, right? Lahavdil, we'll make a big distinction over here. We'll make a big distinction, right? I'm not going to talk about politics. I'll mention one thing. Mr. Barack Obama, I don't even know if he's American or not, but who cares, right? He became president. So he walked in to be a senator, like a walk-on, and he came from nothing. The other people who were presidents were at least governors. You had Clinton, you had Bush, they were governors. Whatever you want to say about them. This guy came from nothing. Came from nothing. But why was everyone enamored with him? Because he had the power of speech. He was able to speak in front of people. In a way that swayed them. Totally swayed them. People still today will talk about how much they loved him, what he did. Okay? Right? But there's nothing behind it. It was speech. It was rhetoric. That's all it was. So if you know how to speak, you can be successful. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with knowledge. Not only that, a person could be saying all kinds of stupid things that go against Torah, but they're a great speaker. Someone once told me, their synagogue or other synagogues, the rabbi's there to entertain. So when you watch a movie, Jewish theme, what are you doing in synagogue? That's his ability to entertain. He has to reach people. That's what he has to do. He has to teach them and give them the truth. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. But if you have the power to speak and you're able to tell a few good stories and you quote Moreno Rabbeinu, Dennis the Menace from the pulpit, beautiful speaker. Nice speech, not too heavy, no musser. You make people feel good. You tell a few jokes. Well, I got to learn the trade better. I haven't quite learned, the tricks of the trade, as they say. It's all fake. It's all fake. You tell me someone learns day in and day out, 10 years, or however much time, and then they went out. A different issue. And now they learn less because they have to give classes. I get it. Someone who goes out after a couple of years, 2 years, 3 years, this, that, they don't have world-class knowledge. They ain't going to get it on the job because they're not going to have time. Right? Totally not going to have time. But, it's about sound bites. It's about making people feel good. Making people feel good doesn't make them smell good upstairs. And there'll be people, I've heard many say this, there are rabbis in synagogues that never tell the congregants you're not allowed to desecrate Shabbos. That is forbidden. And use your portion of the world to come. So I heard stories. People never know. They find out. How can you never say anything? Oh, I don't want to offend anyone. This is a big donor. So my question always is the Torah true or it's not true? If it's true, don't I have obligations? Don't I have obligations to give rebuke, even the person's not going to listen? In many cases, that's the case. So who says I'm allowed to do whatever I want? Guys, it's crazy. Right? That's why we say, well, the Gemara says, we live in an upside down world. Totally upside down world. Someone asks, Psalm 150. Sorry, Psalm 145. Right, what we call Ashrei. Says that we say it 3 times a day. We say it 3 times a day. Say it in the morning twice, and we say it's part of the beginning of the afternoon service. Right, so the Gemara says, the Gemara says that what? That person gets portion of the world to come. by saying it. So, there are a number of benefits. There are a number of benefits of saying it. Right? It was normally called the Hillel David, right? Because that's the very beginning of Psalm 145. That if a person says it 3 times, the Gemara in Brachos 4b says that if you say it 3 times, you're assured of a place in the world to come. Right? Now, what's the obvious question? Why? What makes this psalm so incredible? Right? First of all, we know it's an alphabetic acrostic. Right? It contains all 22 letters except for the letter Nun. Also, in verse 16, it says, you open your hand, you satisfy the wants of every living being. So there are 2 fundamentals of Judaism. And that is, 1, God created the world, created the universe, and God watches over it, divine providence. Right? So what does Ashrei say? Ashrei says both. The fact that it contains the letters of all the alphabets, it's showing that God created the world. And the fact that it says, we just said, you open your hand, you satisfy every living thing. What does it confirm our belief in? The way God runs the world, divine providence. There's also another idea. What's the other idea? Spiritual growth. Right? How do you get to ethical and spiritual goals? Learning Torah. Learning Torah opens our minds. Right? Makes us think in a different way. Not only that, we shouldn't be distracted by this world. Very easy to be distracted in this world. Problem is, again, as we always say, get beaten down in life. A lot of pressure. When there's more pressure, it takes us away from what we're trying to do spiritual. So here I got 22 letters of the alphabet. What are the letters of the alphabet? Do they make words? What are the words? Building blocks. Building blocks of the Torah. So when we praise God with all the letters of the alphabet, then we see God's closeness. We see this enlightenment, this idea, how God's in charge, opens our eyes. And how do we not get distracted by worldly pressure? Maybe I'm going to put this on my, my group, pain is your gain. And that is by believing 100% in God. Belief and trust in God. Why? Because we say 3 times a day, you open your hand, you satisfy the wants of every living creature, every living thing. That God watches and protects all creatures. That affirms our faith. God's in charge. That's what it does. It affirms He's the one that runs the world. So those are a couple ideas why Ashrei is so important. Someone asked, does a Noahide have to be completely physically clean to read the Torah or other holy books? Physically clean? Just listening today, someone was saying a famous, psychologist dealt with trauma, a lot of things. And he was saying that there are people, or someone else, actually, I think it was a therapist was saying, or they're both saying pretty much similar thing about people who have OCD, right? Obsessive compulsive disorder. And one of the things, that a person, like obsessed by is that, when they're in the bathroom, they got to make sure it's totally clean. If you're not totally clean, you can't pray, can't say words of Torah, right? So, some people like that, kind of drive themselves nuts, because of it. Or something like that. So that for sure applies to a Jew. That, a Jew, he shouldn't be learning if his hands are dirty. Right? He shouldn't be learning if he's got to go to the bathroom. Right? That's Torah prohibition. Right? Torah prohibition about the shachsa. Don't be disgusted in God's eyes. right? You got to go, you got to go. That's, you stop learning. That's what you got to do, right? So, should a person be all sweaty and this and that and learn Torah? No. Certainly not. They know they haven't cleaned themselves properly. Yeah. What the problem? Does that apply to a non-Jew? The question is that logical? If a non-Jew goes to the bathroom, right? Or a Jew goes to the bathroom, doesn't matter. Are we going to say by a non-Jew, you got to be absolutely 100% aware that you're totally clean? There's no excrement on your body? No. Not logical, right? If it doesn't smell, we're not going to get gross here, right? A person's covered up, certainly doesn't smell. You think you got everything, you don't have to drive yourself nuts. Now, some people might be more stringent. They'll say, you know what? I'm not taking any chances. I'm going to use wipes, just like you clean a baby. Going to use wipes whenever possible, right? Why are wipes better? Because they're moist. Again, it's not going to get gross there, right? It takes everything away. So that you have less of a chance. You have less of a chance of transgressing this. Now, would I say that applies to a non-Jew? Would that be logical according to the Torah? Yeah, if a person smells, I get it. Then you're going to say, of course they shouldn't be learning, right? Even by a non-Jew. But let's say they think they got everything. Okay. They're clean. They don't think anything of it, so they're not going to be an issue. Are they obligated to go that far like we do? No. But I would say, if they're all sweaty or they smell or whatever, should they learn Torah that way? No. 100% not. Right? Not respectful. All the more so. If a person had excrement or whatever on them, they weren't, if there's a smell, I get it. You can't learn Torah on a bad smell. Right? Now, technically speaking, let's say there was a dirty diaper. You could see the dirty diaper. Could you learn in front of it? There's no smell? Yeah, technically. You can make a blessing there also. But you can see it's disgusting. True. But what's the halacha? The halacha is if it doesn't smell, it's not a problem. Even if I see it, I can make a blessing around it. Now, you could say maybe it's not the best thing to do to sit and learn while it's there. True. But technically speaking, you didn't do anything wrong. Right? So yeah, it depends what it is. Right? Does the person have to clean themselves physically like a Jew? No. I would say maybe as a, what's the word? What would I call it? A moral imperative. As a moral imperative, I would say, yeah, maybe it's a good thing to make sure. Obligatory? No. Obligatory, I wouldn't say. I wouldn't go that far. Yeah. That's what I would say. That's what I would say on that. There's the whole question, as I brought up before, the whole question, you look at the world a powder keg, just waiting to explode. Sometimes better, sometimes not. There are terrorist attacks, there are not terrorist attacks. Let's make one thing clear. We read in this week's parsha that Esav hates Yaakov. You say it's because Yaakov stole the blessing, it did things underhandedly. So that's for all generations. When does it stop that Esav hates Yaakov? When it stops? When the Messiah comes. And then the Messiah comes, takes care of business. That's when it stops. Doesn't stop before that. Now, some people are convinced if there be more Noahides in the world, there'll be less anti-Semitism. Or someone once said, let's say better, there'll be no anti-Semitism. And I corrected them and said it's not true. There'll still be anti-Semitism, maybe it won't be as much. Maybe it won't be as much. Now, what's my proof? Esav hates Yaakov. That's forever. That will be until the Messiah comes. That'll never change. Right? So someone mentioned, how can there be world peace? There won't be. There won't be. Sometimes it'll be better, sometimes worse. In different places, whatever it is. right? Until the evil inclination gets destroyed, there won't be world peace. Impossible. Because once the evil inclination gets destroyed, then everyone will be doing God's will. Very good. But when is that going to be? That's only going to be when the Messiah comes. That's why no one would be allowed to convert at that point. Because then they won't have free will to see all these miracles and say, yeah, I want to convert. And everyone's going to want to join. Too late. Whoever survives, you're not Jewish, you can't join. If you've been accepted, as one great rabbi told me once, if you've been accepted by a rabbinical court for conversion, you haven't finished, you'd be allowed to finish. How do you be allowed to finish? Right? But in general, people now want to, they're doing the will of God, they want to be Jewish, too late. Like in the time of King David, and Solomon, all these miracles going on, no one's allowed to convert. Why? Same reason. Same exact reason. Too many miracles. Of course I want to convert. The Jews are on top now. No, too late. Still have a portion of the world to come as an orange. But world peace, never going to happen. Never going to happen till the Messiah comes. Right? It's the only way. You tell me, well, sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. Okay? Right? And it's going to get, unfortunately, it seems like get a lot worse before it gets better. At least that's what the prophets seem to say. So, okay. Is it ever going to get fixed? Yeah, at one point it will be. The only time it's ever going to get fixed is when the Messiah comes. That's it. Before that, nobody knows. Before that, I shouldn't say that. Before that, Esav hates Yaakov. That's it. Like we said, sometimes it's better, sometimes worse. Sometimes it can be really bad. It can be unbearable. Let's say better. Okay? But at the end of the day, what's the last thing we're going to be holding on to? Is our emunah. Is our belief and faith in God. That's what we're going to hold on to. Right? That is what's going to keep us. That's what it's going to keep us till the end of days. That's how we're going to get through what we call the epics of the Messiah. Right? That's what's going to get us through. The fact that God runs the world. And that God's in charge. So when I say, yeah, but I say that all the time, or a bunch of times, it doesn't have the effect. It'll have an effect. It'll have an effect. You have to keep doing it, but you have to internalize the message. You have to look at everything's being good and that God knows what he's doing, even when it's hard. Even when it feels like you're being totally squeezed. And no one else to turn to except God himself. So you think about nature. You think about the seed of an apple and all the DNA in that, and it makes apple trees. You take a seed, it's interesting. You take a peach seed, a pit, peach pit, right? A human can't eat it. An animal can't eat it. It's too hard. I was telling someone this the other day. It's too hard, right? But what happens? You put it in the ground. You water it. It disintegrates, and it makes this peach tree. That's unbelievable. Do it 100 times out of 100. With the right environment, in the right environment. That's illogical. Because the thing is hard as a rock. You can't break it. You need like a sledgehammer to break it. But you put it in the ground, with all the bacteria in the ground, it disintegrates the pit, and it allows it to grow another tree. Same thing by other pits. It's pretty incredible. So you're going to say, but the problem is we get beaten down in life, we forget these things. True. It's very true. That's why I have to say it many times. God, you're the one in charge, no matter what. No matter what. Person can be in dire straits. You say, okay, I don't know what you want over here. You're the one to take me out of it. Let's see what you're going to do over here. And maybe he does nothing. Maybe it gets worse. God forbid. So how do you stay strong? How do you stay strong in your belief? You keep saying over it, God, you're the one in charge. Because when you say it, it has an effect. Now someone will say, but it doesn't have an effect on me. You got to keep saying it. It doesn't work overnight. Not a magical formula. But you got to say it and believe it. and say, you're the only one in charge. You're the only one who can take me out of this. You're right. I had to put my best foot forward. 100%. Okay? Got to put my best foot forward. And the answer still could be no. But who's in charge? I'm not in charge here. I have to do what I need to do to survive. Okay? But God's the one who makes the difference. So there are things that are not just an open formula. I say this and everything changes. Doesn't work like that. But we have to believe 100% God knows what he's doing. Even if it's hard, even if it's incredibly hard. And be thankful for every last thing we have. You know, I spoke to someone earlier, you know, telling me, well, all my childhood friends, they're all dead. They're all dead. Very depressing. You know, it's how they deal with it. What do they do all day? Play card games. What else are they going to do? Waste of life in general. You're right. You got to internalize the message. We're not going to be here forever. So what are you living for? What's the purpose of what you're doing? You're going to say, but this is really hard. Okay. No one says it isn't. Right? We're going to give benefit of the doubt. It's really hard. Okay. So what are you going to do? You know, have a nervous breakdown, you put it on God. God, you're the one. You take care of it. I don't care how you do it. Do it. You know, and that's it. And if you fail, pick yourself up, you work on other things. Right? And something earlier, got slammed upside the head. Right? I mean, the story's not over yet. We'll see. Okay? I'm putting my best foot forward. I may get 0 from it. Maybe. Totally may get 0. But you know what? You got to try. You got to try. Because that's what we're here for. You know, we're here to toil. We're here to struggle. If I got something in my mind, we'll see what's going to happen later. You know what the answer might be? No. The person probably could help if they wanted to. We'll see. We'll see if God puts it in their mind and their hearts. Maybe they'll feel bad. Maybe. You know, they have an ability, I'm sure. Question is, do they want to do it? Right? So I'm already prepared. You know, if God makes them the vessel, okay, very good. If God doesn't make them the vessel, then okay. You know, what are you going to do? Can't bring a person to drink, right? Can't, you know, you can do whatever you can. Maybe you're not going to change their mind. Okay. Right? You can try guilt. You can try this, you know, and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, so that's the mantra. Right? That's, you know, I'm telling you from me. I'm not telling you what this is, but that's my mantra. Okay. One thing sort of stalled. You know, I would say it failed. Okay. We'll see. We'll see where it ends up. You know, I'll go to plan B. Right? I don't have too many hopes for plan B, but we'll see. You know, God can do anything at any time. In my heart of hearts, do I think it's going to work? No. But, you know, you do what you got to do. Right? If I even said in the back of my mind, okay, the person is a vessel or not a vessel. And if God uses them to help me, very good. If God doesn't, okay. You know, what am I going to do? Start slamming plates and breaking things and cursing and this. Okay, it'll be unfortunate. Okay. Give a person a golden opportunity. Could be their own hobby. Could very well be their own hobby. They don't see it that way, but, you know, okay. It's a golden opportunity if they want. Maybe they don't want. Right? So you say, well, maybe it's the way you package it. Maybe it's the way you say it. Maybe that. God's turning the screws here. If you want someone to help you, they'll help you. If he doesn't want them to help you, doesn't matter what you do. Right? So you're going to say, what about positive attitude? Yeah, positive attitude helps. I will agree. Positive attitude helps. Right? But if you want to protect yourself, you say, well, I'm going to do my best. And if I fail, I fail. You say, no, I'm going to, you know, people say, you got to put in your mind, you're going to succeed. And you're going to, you know, it's positive reinforcement. There is what to be said about this. that a person can change, something going on in their life by positive reinforcement themselves. There is one to be said, not a small thing. I want to harp on this, not a small thing though. But in the end, I'll tell you a very small level. Let's say someone to go to someone for help, right? They go to someone for help. They know the person has the ability to help you. They have the ability, and they say no. They say I don't want to, or they'll make it up an excuse why, maybe why they don't want to or whatever. But deep down they could. They have different ways they can help if they want. Now, it might be a little bit inconvenient, might be other things, okay, but they could if they wanted to. At the blink of an eyelash, they could. Right? Now, what happens when they say no? Right? I'm hoping this doesn't happen, but let's say, right, I'm pretty sure it might, but let's say the person says no, and I can't. No, it's not a question you can't, you won't. You could if you wanted to, right? Again, it's all about negotiation, different things, whatever it is, right? Now, the question is, this person can help you. And now you're left in the lurch. You're left. They don't help you. Now, what's your mentality now? You could say, I'm never going to speak to this person ever again. That could be. Because now the chips are down, you want them to help you, and they let you down. Right? But if you didn't expect them to help anyway, right, that's a little bit of a way of protecting yourself. Right? But the true mentality is, God, you're the one in charge. I'm going to put my best foot forward. Are you going to let this person be a mechanism to help or not? So then why would you break plates or yell and scream or this and that? Because you lack faith. That's the point. You lack faith over here. God's the one in charge. What are you getting excited about? He said no over here. Okay? But we want to prepare ourselves for defeats. We don't want to be disappointed. So you're going to be disappointed. A person may be disappointed. Okay? Now the question is what you do with that disappointment. If you're going to say that person could have helped me, this, that, okay, true. They didn't want. Not that they couldn't. Big difference. They didn't want. Okay? It's their choice. You're giving them an opportunity to help. They don't want to help for whatever reason. Okay? What's your reaction now? Is your reaction, you scumbag, you scum of the earth, this, that, or do you say, God, you're the one in charge? Okay. What do they call it? Water off a duck's back. You move on. You did your Aristoteles. You put your best foot forward. God said no. God said this person's not going to be the vehicle. Okay? Can God change anything at any time? Yeah. Sure. But we have to believe that he can. And we have to know what the bigger scheme of things is. That's how you get through these things. No matter how hard it is. It can be extremely hard. And you get let down. You'll say, well, this is your fault. You should have done this. And you should have done that. That's not the point. Right? Then they're going to get under your skin. Right? Doesn't matter what you did before. Now, there's a different issue. But what if it's something that's even further? What if it's something they don't lose out in the end? They don't lose anything. In other words, whatever they help you with, they get everything back. It's just a question of when. And they still say no. Right? They're not losing anything per se. If they're not losing anything, yeah, is that going to make you more mad? Is that going to make you madder? Right? So they're not a vehicle over here. Maybe they're not a vehicle to help. Okay. You're putting your best foot forward. That's what you have to do. But you have to see the bigger picture. So if someone, and if someone could help and they don't, and you're totally disappointed, Totally disappointed. So what do you do? So mentality, right? Totally mentality, right? That's what it is. So the question is how you deal with it, right? That's the question. Somebody here asks, does an angel teaches a Jew baby while he's in a womb? Does it teach non-Jews as well? That I don't know. I don't think so. Because non-Jew doesn't learn Torah. Doesn't have an obligation to learn Torah. Right? So I would say no. So I would definitely say no. Someone asks, if I do a dangerous job, will Hashem take away from my merit, save me from injuries? Oh, it depends. It depends. Person has a dangerous job, and let's say they get saved in a miraculous way, God could take merits away. 100%. Right? That could be. It's like having extra lives. Playing a video game. Could be those extra lives are taken away. Right? That means you got protected. But some of those merits got used up. Right? He could take some of your merits. Not saying he will, but it could be. Could very well be. Right? Some of the merits will be taken away. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop here. I do this every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern Time, 5 o'clock Israel Time. Anyone has any questions, you can find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman or be on Orthodox Conversion to Judaism. Send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com. Also, mentioning I'm going to start hopefully putting up a video or two this week and a few other things on my new channel, YouTube channel called Pain is Your Game. Speak a lot of these issues that we spoke about today. Otherwise, going to sign out. Wish everyone a good beginning of the day, middle of the day, depending where you are, and everyone have a great rest of the week.